Hey, what's up you guys? Welcome back to my bookish world. I'm Alex and today I'm going to be doing my March wrap up. So I read 8 books in March, which I feel like is a lot less. It felt like a lot, but I also read a pretty big book in March, so I'm excusing myself. But I don't know, I had a lot of good reads, so I will share them with you. Let's get started. So the first book I read was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I read this physically and I gave it 5 stars and I'm obsessed, and I've already listened to it. I've already read it again this year, which I'll talk about in my April wrap up, but yeah, 5 stars. It's so good. And I mean, if you don't know what this is about, this follows Daisy Jones and the Six, a band in the 70s and it follows their rise to fame and their fall from fame. And it's wonderful. So read it. Yeah, that's all I have. The next book that I read was One True Loves, also by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This follows a girl named Emma who gets married to her high school sweetheart, and a year after they get married, he gets into a helicopter crash and is presumed dead. And so flash forward a few years later, and she is engaged to another man when she finds out that her husband is not actually dead. I loved this. I teared up so much. I gave this 5 stars. I don't know how else to talk about it. It was so good. And I'm so happy I read it. And honestly, I think this is just solidifying Taylor Jenkins Reid as one of my favorite authors of all time, because this is the 3rd book I've read by her that have given 5 stars. So yeah, I stan. The next book I read was The Poet X by Lisbeth Acevedo. I did not give this a rating because I had to read it for school, but I did really enjoy it. There were a lot of things that I was able to talk about with the stories, the religion, the sexuality, all that kind of stuff, and it was a fun thing to talk about. Not fun. And I'm hoping like this month to listen to the audiobook, because I've heard that that's really great, and also, you know, I want to hear it and like really listen to it. Yeah. And then the next book I read was Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. By the way, The Poet X is about a girl named Xiomara who is, I think, like 14 or 15, and she's just dealing with questioning her own religion, questioning sexuality, questioning all the things that are kind of going on in her life while trying to find herself, and she discovers slam poetry. So Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds, I also didn't give a rating because I read for school. But I didn't give it a rating, but this book follows a boy who I can't remember the name of, who this follows a boy who is reading, whose brother was shot, and he's going in an elevator. And basically, like, it takes place over like 60 seconds of him trying to decide whether or not he should go and get revenge for the killing of his brother. I thought it was really interesting. I definitely think that I might one day like listen to it on audiobook, just because it's narrated by the author, like Poet X is, so yeah. The next book I read was Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare. This was my big book. I gave this 5 stars. So this is the sequel series to The Infernal Devices by the same author, and it follows the kids of those main characters. And wow, she thick. But I loved it so much. There was so much like wonderful things happening within the book. The characters are so complex. And yeah, I love the story, and I'm so excited to see what else comes from this, because yeah, I'm hoping my ship does okay within this trilogy. But yeah, I gave this 5 stars. The next book that I finished was Our Stories. I just hit my head. I hate this thing. Our Stories, Our Voices, 21 YA authors get real about injustice, empowerment, and growing up female in America, edited by Amy Reed. This was something that I was reading a little bit throughout the month, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. I felt weird rating it because, like, these are all like things that people have really dealt with. Women and also non-binary people have dealt with, so it felt weird reading it, but it definitely hit very close to home with a lot of things, and I totally recommend it, especially if you are anti-Trump, because most of these stories had to do with talking about how they felt after the 2016 election, and I think it was very interesting and well written. I think that there are just so many wonderful, important stories in here. There are a lot of trigger warnings, so I would look up that. I know sexual assault is a main one, but I definitely would look up trigger warnings because there are a lot in this. And then I read, also for school, New Kid by Jerry Craft. I didn't give this a rating because, like I said, I read it for school, but this is a graphic novel that follows a boy who is going into, I believe, 7th grade, and he is starting at a really big private school. You know, he's on financial aid, he's a African-American student, and it's really just about him finding his way in this school and finding friends and finding people that he can relate to. I really enjoyed it. I think this might fall more into middle grade than it does into young adult, but I do think it is definitely worth the read. It's also very wholesome and very cute, and it battles like really tough topics very easily, so yeah, I would recommend it. The last book, sorry, one of my friends texted me. The last book that I read was Catching Fire, or the last book that I finished was Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins. I gave this 5 stars. I've been doing a reread of the Hunger Games trilogy because this prequel is going to be coming out in May, and I think Catching Fire was always my favorite in the trilogy, so I'm really excited that I read it. Definitely brought back all those feels, all the things that I remember from when I first read it, and yeah, I wish this book was longer because there's so much that Suzanne Collins could have done with this. So yeah, I don't know. If you haven't read The Hunger Games, I'm not really going to talk about it because I don't really know how to talk about it without spoiling it. But go read it because it's The Hunger Games. Like, who are you? But I'm reading Mockingjay in April, so that'll be fun. But that's it for my March wrap-up. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Follow all my social media down below. That's Twitter, Instagram, and Goodreads. And I will see you guys all next time. Goodbye!